Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday. Welcome to Coffee Chats with Coach Candy. Rise and shine, everyone. Hope you are doing well. I'm so excited to have another powerful conversation today. So good morning, Deborah. How are you? Good morning, Myra. How are you ladies doing this morning? Good morning, Renee. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Love seeing everybody jumping on this morning. So we'll just give everybody a minute to get settled in on this Tuesday morning. How are y'all doing? Yay, good morning. Good morning, Daryl. Welcome. Good morning, Terry. Morning. Took a social media break yesterday. Yes. Doesn't it feel good? I bet you felt really renewed and energized, right? Sometimes we need to do that. We need to significantly unplug and disconnect from all of this stuff and garbage on social media. Good morning, Carmen. Good morning, everyone. Love this. Wow, we got quite a few people jumping on this morning. Gonna continue some conversation today, move into a little bit of a lighter side of what we talked about yesterday. I know yesterday was a big conversation. Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Elaine. Love it, love it. Still stretching on a mat at the gym. Extra long workout feels awesome. Excellent. Yeah, I might actually have to take a nap today. It's been ridiculously windy in Austin, and I have to say I did not sleep so well last night, so I might need a little replenished place. Good morning, Yvette. All right, so let's dig in this morning. I know yesterday we had a pretty big conversation, and I love that some of you honored the space to disconnect from some of the negativity, some of the news, some of the social media feeds, and taking some time to take care of yourself. But yesterday we were really in a space around, are you part of the problem or part of the solution? And a lot of that is about your perspective, your mindset, how you're choosing to lean in from an energetic standpoint. And what I want to do today is I want to talk about, and I think sometimes there's either confusion or people use it as oh, that's woo-woo, I don't really want to get in there, and you're just kind of Pollyanna sunshine, when we start talking about positive thinking. And I want to get into what positive thinking really is versus positive psychology, which psychology is more of the science of how people tap into happiness and fulfillment. And I know some of you who have been with me every morning, we get into conversations, and Tony Robbins said this in the December issue of Success Magazine, that there's two sciences we really need to learn to master, right? One is the science of achievement, which in our culture, that's a science that we kind of get the equation of what it looks like to wind and grind and climb the corporate ladder, what success looks like. And so we understand that idea of the science of achievement. How do you put action forth? How do you get results? What's the return on investment? Those kind of things. Although I will say that there's an opportunity to redefine that space, because your metrics for success might be very different than someone else's, and that's an opportunity in itself. But then there's this idea of science of fulfillment. And I love that he talks about it as a science, because it really is. It is what is known, and it's a new space. And I have to say, I've just been doing some research on it as of late. And so I just want to bring it in to have a conversation this morning, because I think it warrants, it's still a study that they're creating theories and they're testing and they're working through hypothesis. But the idea of the study of happiness and fulfillment. So how does one feel as if their life has meaning, as if their life has purpose, as if they have that opportunity where they want to engage and participate in their life? That's really the study of positive psychology versus positive thinking, which is more around how we choose to explain circumstances that are in our life. And so let me kind of dig into that a little bit. And I really want to hear from you guys this morning, because like I said, this is just stuff I'm digging into. And most of you know that have worked with me for a while or know me for a while, that as soon as I see something or dig into something, I want to share it right away. I want to extract the information. I want to teach it. I want to get into a space where we can have some really meaningful conversations and see where and how it might apply for us moving forward. And so when I think about positive psychology, I also think about, for those of you that have done my 3 days, or if you've seen some other work that I've done, I really think it plays into that space of what Okinawans call ikigai. And just so you know, ikigai is loosely translated in English, it means that which gets you up in the morning. So it's that space. Good morning, Nilu. It's that space of What really fires you up? What makes you feel, good morning, Mario, what makes you feel as if you've got that breath that you want to step into, right? And so when I think about positive psychology versus positive thinking, it's really that science and study around how we draw our own happiness and how we draw our own fulfillment. And I think, and so that's where I really want to step into a little bit today, because I think that idea of fulfillment, I think the word fulfillment is this kind of like nebulous, nice, outside space that so many people get caught up in and kind of think, okay, that's that something out there. And so really bringing that into a space to say, what does that look like in our life? And what I find really interesting, good morning, Mateo, namaste. What I really like about this concept, this construct really of the study of positive psychology is it doesn't diminish. And this goes back to what we were talking about yesterday. It's not to dismiss the negativity that's going on in the world. It's not to cop out and walk away from the heavy issues. It's to step in and look at it from a very different approach. And so I want to talk, like I said, a little bit about this idea of fulfillment. Good morning, Martha. So as I talk about fulfillment, and I'm going to start to go through some of the differences around positive thinking versus positive psychology, I'm curious, what shows up for you? How would you personally define fulfillment? How would you even define happiness? I think there's a lot to be said in that space. And these are two spaces I don't think we slow down enough to actually say, what does that mean? Because oftentimes happiness is this thing that we keep trying to go after, we keep trying to achieve, when we don't realize that it's actually a decision we make. And I love that there's, a quote from Abraham Lincoln, and many of you might have seen it, that says, most folk, I can't speak this morning, most folks are about as, let me say that again, can't so clear. Let me try that again. Most people, I can't say folks this morning. Okay, most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And I want you to think about that. Happiness is actually a choice. It's not a destination. It's not a if this happens, when this happens. Yet what happens is most of the time we don't slow down and actually say, what does that equate for me? If I were to think about that idea of ikigai, that which gets me up in the morning, that which makes me feel alive and vibrant and present and engaged in my life, what are those things that feed that space? And what is my perspective in terms of how I choose to synthesize and analyze the things going on around me? And again, it's not to push away or to say, wow, those issues aren't happening. It's not to close a blind eye. It's not to turn your head. It's not to not engage. It's how you choose to engage in that conversation and what perspective you're bringing. And so I'm curious, when I say the words happiness or fulfillment, what does that mean for you? What shows up when you hear that word? Do you even know what that means as it relates to your life and what's most meaningful? What's that thing that gets you up in the morning? And so I'm curious. Good morning, Paul. God, we got a full crowd this morning. This is awesome. Love that everybody's fired up on a Tuesday. Excellent, excellent. So what does that term fulfillment mean? What does that really mean? If we're going to talk about the science of fulfillment, and if we're going to talk about how to bring more of that into your life, and you're going to be more purposeful and really live your life in a way that feels fulfilled and engaged, what does that mean for you? And everybody has a different definition, but this is one of the opportunities, right? We get into a space of, it's not just about positive affirmations. It's not just about, if something happens, what happens is typically positive thinking says, if something good happens, I take that in and I believe that I had something to do with it. If something bad happens, oftentimes I blame it or push it out on something else, where negative thinking is everything is, my fault, everything is put on me. And so it's more of an expectancy around what shows up. So Mateo, cognitive behaviorist and behavioral economist, man, I am really struggling. This is what happens when you don't sleep, people. You can't speak. Your words do not come out the way you want them to. I literally got no sleep last night. The wind was howling. So let me try that again. All right, cognitive behaviorist and behavioral economist Have multiple studies that prove that happiness is a choice. Yes, happiness is a state of mind. It is impossible to be happy all the time, nor should we. That is an excellent point. And yes, it is impossible to be happy all the time. It's also like saying you're going to be present all the time. You would be exhausted if you were fully present in every moment, because it requires you to be like on all the time. And so same thing. And there's opportunities and there's things that show up in our life that we're supposed to lean in. We're supposed to feel the pain. We're supposed to feel the grief, the disappointments. It's sort of that yin and yang, right? In order to know the depths of one side of the equation, you must understand and feel the other side, right? And so to feel that happiness, to feel that joy, to know what connects to you, you also need to have that separation that says, I know what doesn't connect for me. I know what doesn't keep me in that space of feeling happy and engaged. We can be excited to get to work to break through complexity, hard work to get to happiness. I love that. Renee, agreed. Happiness is a choice every day. It's the way you enter into the world. Absolutely. Fulfillment is related to knowing your purpose in this life and using my own gifts to serve others. Ooh, I love that. That's beautifully put. So I'm going to read that again. Agreed. Happiness is a choice every day. It is the way you enter into the world. Fulfillment is related to knowing your purpose in this life and using your own gifts to serve others. I love that. So I would love to keep hearing from you guys. Paul, it means going to my Friday Masters Network meeting. I really enjoy everyone there. After the meeting, I turn on some Grateful Dead music and it's all right with the world, right? And sometimes it's things just like that. It doesn't have to be these monumental spaces that say, this is what I feel fulfilled by. This is what I draw my happiness from. It is a state and a condition to make a choice. And everything we talk about is about putting yourself in a position to make powerful choices. And so when you find those things that speak to your soul, and so think about that, a lot of times I ask you guys, when was the last time you feel you fed your soul? When was the last time you felt like you were doing something that really lit you up or put you in a space to draw from that? And and I love that Renee had said that when you talk about fulfillment being that space of knowing you're stepping into your purpose and really being able to serve others, there's a lot of studies that show that happiness and fulfillment really are in that space of how we can give and how we can serve others. It's not only filling ourselves up, but it's the ability to push that out. It's the ability to bring value. It's the ability to create those connections. And it's interesting because yesterday on one of my masterminds, that was like the theme all the way around. It was all about how everybody is looking to level up and create deeper connections. And so, Paul, I hear you talk about going to your Masters Network meeting, right? It's a group of people that are playing at a level that speak to you, where you can draw from that, where you're bringing that in. And so it goes around to, what are you surrounding yourself with, right? Because you can have positive thinking and then have all this negative chaos and noise and things going around that are going to continue to deplete and drain you, or you can be really mindful around what you're choosing to fuel your mind, body, and spirit with. And so think about that. We've talked about several times, it matters what you watch on television. It matters what you get engaged in and what rabbit holes you go down on social media. It matters the conversations you're participating in, whether it be on social media or whether it be at the grocery store in the community. What are you choosing? And again, there's that word choice, right? What are you choosing to engage in, and how are you analyzing that? How are you processing that? How are you taking that into a space to say that's mine or not? Because that is really the premise around positive psychology. It's not that you're always singing, sunshines and rainbows and unicorns, which, don't get me wrong, I would love a world with sunshine and rainbows and unicorns all the time. But I also know that if we had that, I'd probably be pretty bored. Although I'm willing to see if we could actually have that happen and see if that would be true. Terry, happiness is feeling light and positive in my circumstances. Ooh, I love that. And being content in the moment. Fulfillment is being my best, most awesome self to deliver value to the world and continuously strive for greater service. Oh, I love these definitions. I love that you guys are kind of digging in and reaching into that space to say, what does this really mean? That's a beautiful way to look at that. So think about that. If happiness is a feeling, is a state, is a condition, and is a choice, How do you start to flex that muscle so that you choose happiness more than not? And to Mateo's point, it's not that we're going to be happy all the time. Life is life, and it happens, and there's circumstances, and there's things out of our controls, and there's loss, and there's death, and there's grieving that shows up in many spaces. That it's not to say we've got to be Pollyanna sunshine all the time. It's not to say that we're faking and putting ourselves, it's to say, how do we choose to interpret the circumstances around us? And I love that the fact that it's a choice in terms of what we choose to pull from the circumstances that show up in our life. There's so many things that are out of our control. How we react and how we choose to lean into those circumstances or those conditions or those events is a choice. And it's not to say that every time we're going to choose happiness, because sometimes we need that cathartic cleanse. Sometimes we need that space that says, I feel as if I'm shifting or I'm processing, or I feel as if the next horizon's coming. I need to grieve. And there's a real process. And by the way, the more we give ourselves space to grieve and release and let go of emotions and fears and things that show up, the more we're able to choose happiness as a condition of our circumstances more often. And so that takes us into that space of kind of bless and release, right? There's things that show up in our life. And I love that Tony Robbins says this, that life doesn't happen to us, life happens for us. And sometimes the for us is to work through those circumstances, to work through those triggers that we've talked about so much, to help us move into a space to connect to a deeper level of fulfillment. And so think about that. Happiness and fulfillment play in a space that goes hand in hand, right? Do you think, and so here, let me ask the question. Let me not make an assumption in this space. Let me ask a question. Do you believe that, and I love, because Brene talks about there can't be courage without vulnerability and vulnerability without courage, right? So do you believe there can be fulfillment without happiness? Can you have fulfillment without happiness? And can you truly be happy without fulfillment? And so I'm curious, I want to throw that question out because I'm just curious what you all think. Is that even possible? Or do those two things have to be woven together in some context in order for us to really lean into either or both spaces? Terry, the same place in the brain that processes fear and anxiety is the same place that processes gratitude. Absolutely. So you can't be both grateful and fearful at the same time. That is absolutely true. And what's interesting is in our body, when we have that fear, that initial ooh show up, our reaction in our body, whether it's fear or excitement, is exactly the same. The initial moment where something new shows up, we experience it the same way in our body. It's the same instant space, and it's our brain that makes a choice to say, am I afraid of this or am I excited for this? And you can't be in both places at the same time, because excitement starts to pull then from that space that says, ooh, I've got gratitude for what's being asked of me, for where I get to move forward. I have this space where I get to draw on experiences and I'm going to grow. And there's this space of potential fulfillment where fear says, all right, I'm going to lean into that. I'm kind of shutting down. I'm letting that take my power. And so notice that you can't be in both sides of that equation at the same time. It's just like you can't be in love and fear at the same time in the same moment. It's not to say that you can't move immediately from, oh my God, I feel fear, to moving into gratitude. It's just in that exact moment, you can't be in both spaces at the same time. It's two different places, and it is the same space in your brain. And so you've got to figure out where you consciously want to be connected to. And so I love that. And so I want you to think about when you feel that in your body, when you feel anxiety, when you feel fear, it is the same trigger as when you feel excited about something. It's all a matter of, and it's why I love when Mel Robbins says, do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because you disrupt the story that your brain is going to put into that space. And this is a lot of where the power of positive psychology, this is where the opportunity to really lean in differently starts to show up. And so I want you to think about, that choice that you get to make. And in everything that shows up, there's a choice, right? And so Jeff, choosing to be happy is a choice, but what's fulfilling is having the resilience, ooh, I love that, to get through tough times and realize that happiness is in that storm as well. The journey has fulfillment. Ooh, man, you guys are on fire this morning. I love that. Yes, because there's a big piece around positive psychology that talks about resilience. It talks about the fact that it's not that bad things don't happen. It's not that you're not aware of things that are going on that are harmful and hurtful and tough. It's the resilience inside of that and the choices that you make. And so I love that you're bringing some light to that, Jeff. It is about that resilience, right? And there's happiness in the journey. And when you think about what Terry just said around, you can't be in fear and gratitude at the same time, when you start to embrace the beauty, even when it's icky and it's like, it sucks, massively sucks, when you're in the middle of the storm, when you're in the journey, and you realize that that is the biggest piece to be grateful for, that is the opportunity that says life is happening for you, not to you. And you have something that you can pull from that that's going to allow you to grow, because everything that's brought to you is, there is a choice in terms of what you choose to take from it, and growth, and that lesson or blessing in it. And when you understand that there's a resilience, the more you work that resiliency muscle, the more your levels of happiness and fulfillment are also going to grow as well, because they play hand in hand. That in order to really make that choice around happiness, it's knowing your own ability to be resilient. And I'm going to go through, because there's a couple things. And in fact, one of the things, and I'll share this in just a moment, the number one thing it talks about when people really are living a happy and fulfilled life is that most people are resilient. So I love that you brought that up, Jeff. I mean, you guys are on fire this morning. This is awesome. Renee, life happens. The challenge is to be present in our circumstances and to accept what is within our control, and yet be gentle enough to acknowledge the variety of emotions and feelings we are experiencing, to be authentic to ourselves. Yes, and I love that. And the one thing that I would offer, and Deepak says this, and Joe Vitale says this, and anybody that does deep work in the law of attraction, they talk about changing that frame from even accepting what is to accept. So it's not that space of, and so I love that you said accept what is. So I really want to focus on that, because most people are kind of like, oh, it is what it is, right? No, it is what you accept. And so I love, Renee, that you called that out to talk about you when you accept what is, because it's about what you choose to accept as a condition of that circumstance, which is then how you choose to either step into a space to have gratitude, to be happy, to make that choice, because there is no such thing as it is what it is. That is an ultimate cop-out, if ever. It is what you choose to accept and what you choose to take from that. And so I love that. Like I said, you guys are on fire this morning. They are not mutually exclusive. Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can't have one without the other if you're really going to step into those spaces. I think they are that space of, is it the chicken or the egg? Because they both exist. To have real happiness, there's an element of fulfillment that needs to be there. And to be fulfilled, there needs to be an awareness and openness and choice around happiness. And so I would actually agree with that. I don't think they're mutually exclusive either. Yvette, if you feel you are fulfilled, you are happy, but I don't think you have to be fulfilled to be happy. Interesting. So you're saying that they could be separate from each other. And so I think that's an interesting concept, right? And so again, I don't know. I personally don't think they're exclusive, but I think maybe it depends on where you're at in the spectrum, right? And so that's why I'm asking the question, because I think, Kathy, good morning. The journey to fulfillment is what brings the happy. So I think it's interesting. That's why I'm asking the question, because I want to hear what you guys think, right? There's no right or wrong. And by the way, one person's truth might be someone else's question or someone else's space that says, you know what, I don't really buy into that. It's different for me. And this is where the magic comes in, right? It's when we stop and we actually assess and analyze, what does that mean for me? Because here's the beauty of the conversation that we're having right now. It's not about what I think. It's not about what any one of you thinks in relation to someone else on this thread right now. It's what you think and what you hold on to and what you're willing to create as your due north on your own personal GPS. And so when you understand and put yourself in a space to say, this is my belief, this is what I stand for, and you know what, I can be open and listen to somebody else's perspective about that. This is why I love these kind of conversations, right? It pulls out different perspectives, because this is where listening for understanding comes from too, right? Imagine if we would sit down with more people in our lives and have these conversations to talk about how we're showing up. What does happiness and fulfillment mean for me? Imagine how your conversations would change at the grocery store or with your family or at church or in your community if we stopped just talking about the surface shit all the time and we started to have meaningful conversations around, tell me what happiness looks like for you. How do you know when you're in a space where you're truly connected to that feeling and emotion of being happy? What does fulfillment look like for you? Can you imagine how that starts to elevate and change the conversation and allows us to drop in to listen to where people are coming from and their experiences and their beliefs and their perspective? So Mateo, absolutely. Happiness is the joy of the outcome of actions. Fulfillment is the hard work in action. Holy cow. God, I love where you guys are coming from. When you were at the gym, when you were in the thick of it in the conference room, when you were acting, when you were acing a test in school or certification, that dig in and grind, fulfillment as action happens. Wow, I love these. I'm gonna have to borrow some of these from you guys. I love this context you're putting out there. Terry, I can feel happy without fulfillment because by my definition, I can feel light and joyous and content in the moment. And see, I love that. I love that differentiation. I love that distinction, right? And like I said, to think about that, because I'm starting to go, I wonder, because I'm not sure I know the answer to that. And I think about the fact that I think that they dance together for me. And I'm like, can I be happy without being fulfilled? And I don't know, personally, it's a question that keeps kind of going in my mind because I'm on kind of the quest for both always, that it's the, can I choose to be? And I think there is something to say, I can choose to be happiness. I can choose to be light and open and free, moving towards something that's going to draw and bring me fulfillment. I know I usually keep those as kind of a close dance together, but I love this. I love this perspective, right? I can't imagine feeling fulfilled and not happy. So maybe it's that you can feel happy without being fulfilled, but there's a sense that you can't feel fulfilled without being happy. And so again, as I'm reading some of these on the thread here, an interesting perspective, right? And so again, there's no right or wrong answer. This is just opening the conversation. Yvette, and for me, it depends on if we're talking about personally or professionally. Ooh, I would love to dig into that a little bit more. So talk about what you mean, because I do think a lot of us live in this juxtaposition of we have our personal way we show up in our personal life, and we have this professional way we show up in our professional life. And where are they different? Do they have to be different? And why do we keep them different? Does that depend on how we can be happy and fulfilled depending on which space we play in? And I think there's a real question in that. So very curious as you bring that up, Yvette, what that really means and why for most of us there's this differentiation between this distinction between those two spaces. Terry, as she's replying to Full, if you're fulfilled, doesn't happiness naturally come out of it? It's a good question. Terry, wouldn't you say happiness is gratitude in the moment, even if you haven't hit your outcome? With the gym example, I'm happy every day I get out of bed and get into the car and drive to my workout. No outcome yet, haven't lost the weight, built the muscle, but I'm happy. And I think there's a good question in that, because there are people that look at happiness as being an outcome for something they achieve or something they arrive at. And this is where I think the opportunity to step into more of a psychology of positivity and really stepping into that space is the understanding that happiness is not an outcome driven thing. Happiness is a state and a condition that we choose to be in. And it's a matter of, are we stepping into a place? And this might be where you say, I can't be happy without having gratitude. I can't be, because if you even look at when Brene puts up the, love, belonging, joy, gratitude is sort of the wrapper around those three top emotions and vibrations that we have. How does that play in? Because when we keep looking at happiness as a destination or an outcome or an achievement, we often miss opportunities to be fulfilled, to be in a space where we can take our personal power back and own that space, because it's truly not a place that we arrive to. It's not an if-then equation. It is a choice. And when you understand that happiness is a choice regardless of the outcome, you start to take a different level of personal power and start to view things from a different lens. And so I think that's an interesting question. Is fulfillment in the journey or the outcome? Same for happy. Mateo and Paul both make me think about this. Interesting question, right? Sure, again, levels, chicken or the egg, toe or Mateo. I love that. So I want you guys to think about that, right? Can you have one ultimately without the other? And is fulfillment something that you arrive on? Is something that has to be certain, because you think about the word even fill inside of fulfillment. Does something have to be filled up? Does something have to be accomplished? Does something have to be done? Or again, is it a state or perspective or choice based on how you're showing up and how you serve? Because is it about an outcome, or is it more about how you're choosing to show up and serve that creates that fulfillment? And I go back to what Renee said originally, is that space of me being able to serve others, right? And so curious, because I think these questions are really powerful. And this is, I don't know about you guys, but I am totally jazzed up about this conversation this morning. I love the engagement, and you guys are just rocking it, Yvette, because for most of us, we have to work. Ooh, that's an interesting concept. So I have to get something out of it to be happy. Okay, a nice paycheck is good, but I need to do something more than just getting paid to be happy. But on a personal level, simply being with friends and family that I love, I am happy, and maybe I'm fulfilled in the moment also. So I'm gonna actually challenge that a little bit. Do we have to work? There's that have to, that negative anchoring word that says, I got to, I have to. And what happens is most people go out looking for the job, which I love that T. Harv Eker says jobs definition is just over broke. And when you think about having to work and thinking about having a job, and we're all about needing to arrive at an outcome, and we need to achieve a certain thing. And I even talk to people especially that are in transition, and I ask them, what if instead of thinking about it from the context of I have to work, is I get to find a way to engage in a mission and movement that I buy into, that I believe, that I know that I can show up and add value in that space. Because whenever we use that space of I have to, I got to, I should, I need to, we start to disrupt that opportunity for us to step into a place of full fulfillment and happiness, simply because we're starting to put that obligatory state on ourselves that says you start to create that space that feels kind of icky, right? And so work can have a positive connotation that's about the value of how I get to show up and serve, versus work being I got to do something to get a paycheck. Because at the end of the day, is it, yeah, the paycheck's nice, or is it, no, I feel really good because I am stepping up and serving in a way that's creating value, and I know that I'm being paid accordingly. There's a difference in that framing. And so I say that because a lot of people say, I've got to work. First of all, it's a choice. Second of all, that's your mindset going in. Think about why there might be a disconnect between where you feel happy and where you feel fulfilled in that space, versus in your personal life where you can just be and you can show up and you can engage. Is there a way to bridge that gap in the work environment as well, simply by changing your perspective that says, I get to show up and be part of something that's moving a mission forward. And maybe it's an opportunity to get reconnected into the why you chose that job, what you believe to be the positive energy of that organization, and your own unique value in that space. And so I just throw that out there because I want to challenge that a little bit. Good morning, Judy. Good morning, Anne. So technically life equals work, right? Everything takes effort. Yes. And so I think about, it's a matter of, is it an opportunity to redefine what work means? Is it an opportunity for us to define what fulfillment means? And it's the next coffee chat top having to, oh, we can do that. I can absolutely bring and I think that was one of my very first ones as well. I think that might've been, the coffee chat #1 when we got into the space of obligation versus opportunity language. So absolutely we'll be bringing that back more. And Yvette, I would actually challenge you to go out, or invite you to go out and check out the first coffee chat we did. It was a Monday mindset. And I believe that was the conversation we had on that one. It was really around letting go of the frames of I need to, I have to, I got to, I should, and opening up a space around I am, I choose, I get to, I'm blessed, I'm honored, I'm grateful for, and realizing that everything we do is a choice, even in the work that we do. And so thanks, Mateo. Have a great day. Stay awesome as well. As humans, Terry, as humans, we are made to contribute. Contribution can bring fulfillment or angst. I choose fulfillment. Probably all of you do too. Yeah, there is something to be said for human beings need connection, they need contribution. Whether we believe that or not, we were all put on this earth to serve in some capacity. And so there is something about when you really get into some spiritual spaces, regardless of religious belief, there's a lot of connection around fulfillment and in your own spirituality, around how you show up and serve and what your contribution is and the value that you're delivering. And so I think there's a whole lot to that. Myra, when I rephrase that as I get to work and impact, the money becomes completely unimportant. Can't take it with you. No. And so, Yvette, stop challenging me, but you are making a good point. Girl, that's what I'm here to do. I am here to challenge you as well as me. Because like I've said before, I mean, I bring forward conversations that I need to lean into as well. I teach what I need to learn myself. And yeah, definitely go out and look at that first video, because there is a big conversation around shifting out of that obligation frame into one that's more of an opportunity. And what I think the biggest piece of all of this is the fact that it really is our choice, right? It's a choice. And it starts with you slowing down long enough to actually ask yourself some of these questions and say, what does that look like for me? How do I measure success? What is the definition? And by the way, most of us, whatever our metric or definition of success was when we were 20 some years old, is totally different as we're approaching our 30s, 40s, 50s, we're 60s, wherever we might be. And have you taken time to sit down and say, what does that mean for me? And oftentimes when you start looking at success at this juncture in your life, and as Wayne Dyer talks about in the afternoon of your life, I talked about the shift on Friday, it's more about that sense of fulfillment over accomplishment and achievement. It's more about that sense of peace and happiness and joy and belonging to yourself first, right? It's about stepping into a place to be who you are in full authenticity without worrying about how everyone else is perceiving you, what that really means, right? And so, Myra, the shift makes room for you to be happy. Absolutely, right? Love that. Richard Bach, Terry, illusions. We reach best what we most need to learn. Absolutely. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when the teacher is ready, the student appears. You all are students and teachers. And so know that when you're standing in that space, that is an opportunity to draw that fulfillment to you. It's that space of contribution. Are you contributing by what you're extracting and learning and implementing in terms of a perspective to change your life? Or that shift that Myra's talking about, or are you using that as an opportunity to teach and lead that forward for others to engage in the conversation as well? And again, going back to yesterday, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? These conversations, this conversation this morning is part of the solution. We're talking about what it means to show up and what fulfillment looks like and contribution and how we serve. It's a powerful space to start to create that energy and that momentum. Jeff, I'm wondering if self-examination is needed first to find what truly brings you fulfillment. Absolutely, 100%. We all think we know what brings us fulfillment, that often still has a void within us. If we examine, we discover what we may have never known. And I agree. And so that space for self-reflection, that space for meditation, that space to be still, that space to play is so important, because the more you're shifting, the more you need that space to be able to go inside and ask those questions that Jeff's talking about, to do that personal examination, to do that personal assessment and say, what is meaningful and important for me at this juncture in my life? And so what I want to leave you guys with, I love this conversation this morning. You guys are amazing. When you think about people who are satisfied with life, eventually even have more reason to be satisfied, because happiness leads to desirable outcomes at school, work, to fulfilling social relationships, and even to good health and long life. And that the things that you see, most people are happy. So this is what, if you think about the psychology, positive psychology, it's most people are resilient. We talked about that some this morning. Happiness, strengths of character, and good social relationships are buffers against the damaging effects of disappointments and setbacks. So we're creating that kind of bubble, that space that allows us to move through those setbacks and disappointments in a way that we can show up and be present. Crisis reveals character. So this is all some of the principles of that positive psychology. Other people might matter mightily if we want to understand what makes life most worth living. Our religion or spirituality matters inside this space, what we believe in terms of what's bigger than us and what we're ultimately a part of. Work matters as well if we engage the worker and provides meaning and purpose. If we can step into that space of that mission, we're moving forward. Money makes an ever diminishing contribution to well-being, but money can buy happiness if it's spent on how we serve other people. As the heart matters more than the head when we start to step into this space. And so it helps with critical thinking, and it helps with unconditional caring and love. And then good days have common features. You feel autonomous, competent, and connected to others. So think about that. You can feel autonomous and connected in the same space. And there's something about that science of fulfillment that brings those together. And then the good life can be taught. So all of this that we're engaging in this morning can be taught forward, and that's part of where that fulfillment and that engagement and that happiness also is our opportunity to tap into. So awesome conversation this morning. Any last thoughts or comments? Good morning, Ty. Welcome. Any more thoughts or comments before we close out a powerful discussion? You guys were on fire this morning. I love it. I love how everybody showed up. There was a lot of new people on the call this morning as well. So welcome everybody that is new. Thank you for all of you that show up every morning. These conversations are getting really juicy, really rich. I never know where they're going to go, and always look forward to just opening up a space and seeing what you guys are ready to dive into. So that being said, I encourage you to sit in a space today to ask yourself some of those questions, those self-examination questions around what does fulfillment mean for you? What does it mean to be happy and when you choose to be in that space? And how can you start to really engage more in the science of fulfillment? And what would that mean in terms of shifting and moving you into a more purposeful and present space? So with that, I just love all of you. Thank you for showing up as always with me in the morning. I will be back tomorrow morning for another coffee chat. Excellent. Yay. I'm so glad. And again, if there's any topics you want me to bring, just drop them in the thread or put them on the page. I am happy to go just about any direction. There's not much that's off limits on these. I'm not going to have any political debates. There's a couple things that might just be, I just don't have any energy for that, but otherwise there's not really any topics that are off limits. So if there's specific things you want to dig into and see where people are at and engage in, just let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow again, 7:30 a.m. Central Time for Coffee Chats with Coach Candy. I am Coach Candy, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.